It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, June 26th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high-quality content that's mocking up the draft.
All right.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And to keep up with our latest episodes, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you should keep track of those socials because as the draft plays out, we're going to be posting all the relevant information and links to our special draft related content. So make sure you are following us and subscribed to our YouTube channel or the podcast, like I said, wherever you listen to podcasts. We are going to attempt to climb the mountain and mock up this draft, which is one of the more difficult to do so in recent years, right?
Yeah, no question. I think, doing it yesterday on the radio and just going through the exercise, I think it's really hard. I think there's going to be some big surprises. I think there'll be guys that people have, in the second round and the first. They'll have guys that are first that'll go late second. I think there's going to be some wide gaps here.
I think so. I think there's a lot of variation that could happen, like you said. And, we have talked all along, as we have done on our traditional Thursday show prospect profiles that we've been doing all season long, that, you in particular don't like doing mocks. You like doing your rankings.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you have to try and put this puzzle pieces together, right?
I don't have to. Sirius forced me. I mean, if they didn't, I wouldn't do it. That's actually the truth. But yeah, it's, you try and put the puzzle pieces. And then I went through two exercises. I did that. And then I also did my list, not my rankings, but hey, if I was in charge of, director of scouting for all these places, who would I pick if I was the ASGM? So, it's I went through that exercise too, which turned out to be a little different than my rankings.
Yeah, and I think that's it's a pretty interesting way to approach it in those two different ways. Most mock drafts try to predict what the team would do, which is how I approached it. So we're going to kind of start with that as a baseline, but then kind of pepper in some of what you would do if you were the GM of that team, just because I think there is some interesting variety there. So let's get to it. First overall, New York Islanders. It's got to be Schaefer. He's the presumptive first overall.
Yeah, there's no question there. Again, I would pick Hagens, not because he's from Long Island. People could say that. It's not true. I just believe in the kid, and I covered him for long enough that I know what he's made of. I like Schaefer. I just don't think he's first overall, but the Islanders are in a spot. They're not going to pay Noah Dobson $11 million, and they need another top defenseman, and he's going to be a top defenseman.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I just don't think that there's much of a difference, in my opinion, of what they would do and what they should do there. I think it makes sense for the organization overall. Yeah. We talked to JD from Locked On Sharks, and he thought that Michael Misa was a lock in the number 2 position, and I agree with him. I think, again, this is just the player. You can argue who the top center in the draft is, but Michael Misa just kind of stands above in a lot of ways, and I think also fits in with the Sharks' look and what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's the big key. I don't think he's the top center, but I do think he fits in, and so I think JD had it right.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I have Frondell going third to Chicago here. I just really think his stock has risen so much, and Chicago is going to say he's the best available at number 3. And where they are, they're kind of in a mushy part of their rebuild, but also trying to clarify things and put some pieces into place. And I think Frondell is a good piece for what they're trying to do there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just feel like they're going to go with Porter Martone because they don't have anybody like that. And they're not going
Hmm.
to get anybody. They're not going to get a power forward type like this later in the draft. They're just not. They may get somebody that's sort of can play that, but not on a top line basis that could really help Connor Bedard. Frundell, would help Bedard if they make him a winger, but we don't know if they're doing that.
Right. And that's where I feel like for a top 3 pick, you go with best available regardless of position.
Not
Uh,
for me.
yeah, and I think that's a valid difference of opinion, but that's just why I went with Frondell in this case for them, that they're still in a spot where they're just gonna pick the best available player regardless of position there. But I think, when you go to the number 4 pick here with Utah, I think they're a little bit of a wild card for
There.
me because I'm not sure what they're doing, to be honest. I'm very confused by what they're trying to put together, and I think there's some leftover Arizona situation with the players that they have still to some degree, but they're trying to make some big changes, and so to me, Caleb Denoyer fits the bill for
Mhm.
what they're trying to do, but again, I could be completely off base here because I find them to be very confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Frundell or Denoyer. I think Denoyer's stock has risen only because he's 6'2",
Right.
and he is a little bit physical. That's the way this league is. That's the way the bias is. Uh, I still don't think it's impossible that he doesn't go in any of these picks. I still think with these other guys that it's possible that Denoyer still could fall.
Yeah, I do
And it's
think
not
it's
a fall.
possible.
It's like
Yeah,
where I think he should be. I don't know.
yeah, I know. It's really, I think, up for debate here. So we're just like giving it our best shot here
Yeah.
based on what we know about these guys and all the profiles that we've done leading up to this. But yeah, I think Denoyer is the direction that they will go in, assuming Frondell is gone. To your point.
Right.
Now, Nashville, I think that's where they pick Porter Martone. And I think that they've struggled so much and they think they have scorers, but they don't really. And I really think they just need that power forward to get their scorers in the right position. And that's why I put Porter Martone here.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. I think it's I think Martone is a fine pick. I think they're going to go after Hagens though, because he interviewed really well there, and they are looking for that skill and scoring. And so, like, that's the guy. Like, if that's what you're looking for, you're getting a really great value pick, and so that's who I think they're going to go with.
Yeah, I think that's totally valid. I was just kind of going with the enabling mechanism versus the mechanism
Yeah, yeah.
itself in a lot of ways here. But yeah, I do think Nashville, obviously, Nashville having the pick right above the Flyers is going to be huge for the Flyers and kind of then create the pool of 2 to 3 players that Danny Briere has said he's going to choose from. And given where I've laid out the pick so far, that puts James Hagens in the 6th spot for me.
Yeah, and I answered the question online because people are like, "Hey, if he's there, would the Flyers take him?" And my answer is, I believe they would. I just don't believe he'll be there, and I think it may be Denoyer after all this talk. And if it is, they would take him. That would be their top guy anyhow. So it may happen, it may not. But I think there's a chance.
Yeah, that's where I think James Hagens is just the guy that falls to the Flyers here in terms of who's available then. And it's, I would say, partially wishful thinking because I would see Boston taking Brady Martin in the next
Me too.
slot here. And that's me also hoping the Flyers don't take Brady Martin if he's available.
Right. I think Danny's playing a game with that one. I think he's tweaking Boston by
Mhm.
saying he's really interested in Martin to see how desperate are they. I really think that's what's going on here.
Yeah, and then that's where Jake O'Brien to me then falls to Seattle. And I understand that maybe they want a different position, but I just feel like he's best available in this scenario. So that's why I put him there.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the case for me. I also think Seattle, because they're very analytical, will look at Victor Eklund and how he fits in and say he's going to be the
Sure.
higher point guy of what's out there. And they kind of need that. So either way,
They
it's a
do.
good pick, but they need both.
Yeah, and then for Buffalo, I put Radim Murka there. I
Me
think
too.
they really need a strong defenseman at this point, and I think he would be that top defenseman, other than Schaefer, obviously, who's gone, and this is a good spot to take him.
I actually don't believe that, but I believe because he's a big right-handed shot defenseman and they have a shorthanded, they're shorthanded on right-handed shots is why they would make the pick. And it doesn't mean I think he's a bad player. I just don't think he's that guy in that spot, but I see why they would take him.
Yeah, and then Anaheim has that 10th pick, and I would put Victor Eklund there.
Yeah, and I would put O'Brien there because my easy answer for that one is if O'Brien's there, and I think there's a good chance he will be, they just lost Trevor Zegras. You could reload with Jake O'Brien.
Yeah, I think that's a good option as well. Yeah, I think these are really good slight differences, but with some good logic to it. And we are going to continue the conversation with the 11th and 12th pick that Pittsburgh, unfortunately, have coming up next. Ever wish managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money? It can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And the thing that I love about Monarch Money is it helps you keep track of the day-to-day and reduce that unnecessary spending on things like takeout, but it also helps you plan and budget for those big purchases like a new car or a home, and you can do it all at the same time. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, on tomorrow's show, we are going to do our final draft preview with our predictions for the day and what it means to the Flyers to have a successful draft and how you can define that. So we'll get to that, plus your poll results on the decentralized draft. Very, very interesting results there.
I'm
so
sure
excited
there
to
are.
talk about that. Yeah, so looking at the 11th and 12th pick, now the Pens got that 12th pick very recently because the Rangers decided this was the time they were going to hand over that pick to Pittsburgh from a trade that they had. So the next two picks for me for the Pens are Roger McQueen and Jackson Smith.
Yeah, that's what I have too. I believe they need that center because a big center, because Malkin will be retired possibly before McQueen ever gets there, and they need defense, and Smith is really talented and he's a top 4 guy. So yeah, I could see both of that, and Smith stays in the state, because he's at Penn State. So that's good too.
Right. And I see them wanting to pick, a forward and a defenseman here to balance it out. And I think that Dubas is absolutely that guy that's going to take the risk on McQueen.
Yep.
I feel like that's in his wheelhouse, so to speak. So that's why I thought these two guys would be the guys they will go with at that point. Up next is the Detroit Red Wings. And I have Lyndon Lankovic here.
Okay.
I just thought that the Yzer plan is kind of derailing a little bit. And I think this would just add an extra boost of energy into the system that maybe they're missing or has gotten complacent in they're trying to figure things out. I just think that he, has like the vision and the type of energy that the Red Wings need to kind of shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, I like Lakovic a lot, but I put Carter Bear here because I feel like this is something lacking in the Red Wings system. They need some flash and scoring, and I think this is a way of getting it. And the only reason Bear would be here is because he had that Achilles surgery. So, he dropped a little bit, but he's a tremendous talent.
Yeah, well, when we get to where I put him, that will play into it for sure. But Columbus is up next. Who you got?
For Columbus, I have Logan Hensler. I have Hensler because he could plug in anywhere. You could play him on the top pairing, the second pairing, the third pairing. He's just so talented, and so he's a very talented fast skating, probably has a little more offense defenseman from the NTDP. So I like him. And he was with the NTDP. He was with Wisconsin this year, and he's going to be in the Big Ten, which may be the toughest conference in hockey. So he will get a work in college hockey. So he'll get a workout.
Yeah, and I went with a different defenseman here in HSN. He just brings something a little bit more cerebral to the table here, and that's Columbus to me.
Okay.
So that's why I put him in that spot. But we were thinking in the right direction with picking a defenseman here. It's a little bit different. Now, in the 15 slot for Vancouver, this is where I put Carter Bear, because their whole existence is an Achilles heel and as a franchise. So I'm like, this is the perfect spot for Carter Bear in this draft, in my opinion. But I also think the potential is there, right?
Oh no, there's potential. There is.
Right. So I just feel like this makes sense for them.
It does. If he's there, I think it makes sense. I put Cameron Schmidt because, again, I don't think they're going to care that he's 5'7". I think they're going to see the scoring. He's a local kid from Vancouver. And so they're going to be like, yeah, that's our guy. And they're just going to hope that he can make it. And I think he can make it. But again, this would be a prototypical Vancouver pick in my eyes.
Yeah. And that would be a big reach, I think.
Yeah. But they've made reaches before. Go look at their drafting.
Yeah, that I know. Well, that's why I put Bear there, because I think the injury risk is that reach in some ways, understanding that this is kind of where he falls anyway in the rankings. But what Vancouver does is going to be a real pivotal inflection point, because Montreal has the next two picks. They got one from Calgary, and this is where I see them wanting to make a fan-pleasing pick and a practical pick, but also pick two different positions and look at the balance of what they're going for. So I picked Justin Carbonneau for the 16 slot. You need to have a French Canadian in the mix.
Let's be clear. We all picked Justin Carbonneau, but not because of the French Canadian thing. Like, I can go back to Louis LeBlanc.
I think he'll fit there too.
Right. Louis LeBlanc was the wrong reason to pick a French Canadian on the Canadiens, but they've learned since then. And Carbonneau is a really good player, but he still can't answer the question why he turns over the puck or takes these risks. He just says he's still learning. So, okay. I mean, there is some risk in this pick.
Yeah. And so this is where I put Logan Hensler in the other slot for Montreal. And, I think that's where we kind of flip-flopped.
Yeah. And I have Kashawn Aitchison.
Right. Exactly.
And I think they need that type of, they have one type of defenseman that can do that. He's a little different. And so having a couple is good. We'll see.
Yeah. Now for Calgary at 18, they have multiple picks in the first round as well. I put Braden Coots here because I just feel like he's the most Calgary Flame type guy in here, of just like somebody that's, a little rough and tumble, but has an offensive upside to him, but isn't going to be pretty out there. So that's why I put him there with Calgary.
Yeah, I don't have Coots there, but I have Ben Kindle, who plays for the Hitmen, very offensive, isn't the biggest guy, but also can really handle himself out there. So I feel like that's kind of a Calgary guy too.
Also fair. I really think Kindle is going to fall unexpectedly. Okay. That is my gut feeling about him. But, and I'm going to hate where I put him, honestly, in the mock, but it's what I felt like I had to do here. Now,
here's the X factor with this one. Also, I feel like Craig Conroy is going to look at Kindle and see himself too.
That's fair. That is also fair. St. Louis has the 19th pick. I put Cam Reed here.
Right here, I have Braden Coots. And again, I just go back to when I asked him at the combine about him being a pain in the what on the ice, and he said that's my third best attribute, and he smiled like he likes being that guy besides being able to score.
Yeah, I just thought Cam Reed is a smart player, and St. Louis wants to do the smart thing here, and because they're also at a crossroads where they kind of overperformed this year. And so they need to have like very strategic additions to the organization at this point to get where they need to go. So I thought Cam Reed would be a good fit there. For the 20th overall pick, I went with for Columbus. This is a second pick of theirs in the draft, and this is where I have Cole Reshny going, and I'm going to be mad about it, to be honest.
I have Malcolm Spence going here. He's a momentum changing winger. I think he lost a half an inch at the combine. I think he's now 6'1.5" instead of 6'2". But he's a really, really good player, and he's a terrific passer. And he's a guy that you have him out there. He can control a shift.
Yeah, I get that. I just I feel like when we're approaching the Flyers 22nd pick, Columbus and Ottawa are going to do things that mess up the Flyers plan.
Yeah, I mean, this is how the draft is, like this is the chess game that goes on.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Ottawa, I think that, there's been a lot of prognosticators who say that Prokhorov is going to go to the Flyers, but I think Ottawa is going to snake him. And I think they're going to do it a little bit to be spiteful, but also because I think that he's a type of player that they don't have right now, in my opinion. And I think that he would just be a really good addition to their prospect pool.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I'm going with Lyndon Lakovic here because, he's a big, strong wing with room to grow. And, if you have him on the ice at the same time as some of their other big guys like Kachuk and such, that I think there could be a real impact down the line.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, we're going to come back with the Flyers pick at 22 coming up next.
Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills, that can take hours. Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have tried and made the switch. You can even read customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL and use LockedOnNHL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL and use promo code LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Rugiet website for full safety information.
All right, picking up where we left off with the Flyers pick at 22nd overall here. And I went with Blake Fiddler here because I think that, they got their center earlier in the round. And I think that they're going to make the bet that goalies will be available later for them. And I think they're going to want the strongest defenseman available at this point. And so Blake Fiddler is that guy to me, and that's why I put him here.
Okay. I mean, I see that. I think Fiddler's a really good player. I don't have him quite there, but I get the thinking. I feel like because Nashville has put it out there, they want a goalie and other teams have, I think this is a decision time for the Flyers. And I think if you want to get a best in draft at a position, which I feel like they didn't do the last time they had a chance for a goalie. They got a good one, and we talked about that, and it's on other shows. I think you get Joshua Ravensbergen, and you end that whole discussion, and you just get him. You have that extra pick, so you could trump everybody here and get him a little early and get him. They did interview him. He's got a great wingspan. He's smart. He's going to take some time, but again, he has that number one quality, and there's very few guys in their system with that number one quality.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's a good logical pathway to get there, and I think that the signals are there, but I just I feel like they're going to want a defenseman here, and I think that they think they can get a better defenseman at 22, very much better at 22 than they can at 31, given where things are going to fall out. And they would prefer to have that. And if they risk the goaltending situation, that there's at least one or two other goaltenders that they can get with an early second round pick that will satisfy what they're looking to do. Maybe not as good
Well, that's the
as
thing. I
Ravensburgen,
feel like they
but
have
I
to
think
go that
they
route.
can.
So how will you feel in the next pick if Nashville takes Ravensburgen? How will you
Well,
feel?
that's what I have.
Yeah.
So,
So how do you feel?
I can live with it if
Okay.
and only if they pick one of those other guys, either with 31 or with, like, say, 36.
See, I can't live with it. I think they take him, and then you have Barry Trotz cursing under his breath, and so then they go up, and instead they take Blake Fiddler for the same reasons you said, because they still need that kind of player as well, and he has a lot of
Right.
runway.
And again, I think, like, if it goes that way, I'm 100% okay with it. And I think it's also a valid move. I'm just trying to, like, gut instinct. What do I think the
Oh, sure.
Flyers
No,
might
you got to
do
go
in
with your
that
gut.
situation?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I netted it out there. In the 24 slot, I have William Moore going to the Kings.
Okay. I really like William Moore. I don't have him in this spot. This is a spot where, Flyers fans will be like, oh, because if Cole Reshney goes to the Kings, he really wants to play for the Flyers. But the problem is the Flyers are going to have that decision of, like you said, take a defenseman, take a goalie, take Cole Reshney. And I think Reshney, unfortunately, would be like third on that list. The Kings are unafraid. He's a little bit smaller, but I think he'll be a very good scorer at the NHL level, and I think they would know that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have him a couple spots lower, which we'll get to here. Chicago has another pick in this spot. I put Malcolm Spence
Okay.
in here. I think that, you had him higher, I
I did
believe,
20. No,
but
not 20. Where did I have Spence? I had him 20. Yeah, 20
to
to the back.
Columbus.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just feel like he's going to fall here and Chicago's going to jump on it.
Yeah, I mean, if what you said is right about the earlier thing with Chicago, at least if they get Spence, he is a power forward. He's just not the same
Right.
quality as Martone, but he's still a power forward. So, which is what I alluded to, that yes, you can still get them in this draft, is just not going to be the same kind of guy. All right. So for this one, I have Jacob Romback, the big defenseman out of the USHL, 6'6". Every USHL player I spoke to said he was the hardest to play against in that league, and he could skate. And people could go look at the interview I did with him on my Instagram. I think if you talk to him, he'll make you believe. And I don't think Chicago has anybody like him on the blue line.
I think that's fair. I think it's just a matter of what the balance of the multiple picks that Chicago has. For Nashville at 26, this is where I have Sasha Boumedienne. I think that would be a good complement to the Ravensburgen pick for them. And we've already kind of talked about him. Now who do you have Nashville taking in this slot?
Yeah, for Nashville, I have Max Seneca, the big Czech defenseman. And again, I think Barry Trotz will identify with this type of player because he's big and impactful. He's 6'5", and he could really do a few things on the ice that they need.
Yeah, I think that's a good option for them. And this is where I have the frustrating pick for the Washington Capitals. And this is where I have Ben Kindle, because
they're unafraid. They definitely could take Kindle.
Yeah. And I think that they tend to get players sometimes that drop a little bit and kind of snake them and steal them and turn them into something amazing. And this is just a Washington Capitals thing to do. And so that's why I put him in this spot.
What's funny is if Conroy doesn't pick Kindle, if they don't pick him, I'll ask him, why did you not take him? Now, Conroy was a taller player, but I do think Kindle has a lot of his qualities. So sometimes, and Briere is going to do that too. There's going to be a guy in this draft that Briere identifies with and says to a table, let's go with this guy. Because, those guys always feel like those kinds of players can make impact at the next level. But I like your pick there. I do. And so now this is where I have Milton Gastron, who is a very impressive, strong forward in all zones. So he's a center. He can play wing. He's just one of those guys. I feel like if he's there, the Capitals can literally decide, hey, is he a center or is he a wing? And he'll play for them because they do the right thing with player development. And this guy's already playing in Sweden. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought about Gastron a lot, but ultimately I think he'll go early second round, but we'll see how that plays out. Now, the Winnipeg Jets, there was only one guy for the Winnipeg Jets here, and that's Jack Nesbitt. We just talked about him on this show. He's just
too.
Yeah, he just screams Winnipeg Jet.
He screams Winnipeg. Even his haircut does. No offense, Jack.
Yeah.
But I really like him. I do. He's got a great personality. But he's really smart player, and I do think there's a development cycle that Winnipeg will let him do because, again, a big center, and they like big centers. He's not Mark Scheifele, but they like big centers.
Yeah, and for Carolina at 29, I had Cullen Potter because I think they're going to pick somebody with a lot of potential, but is also a somewhat confusing pick because they're Carolina.
I like the thought there. I tried to get Cullen in there because I really like him. I just didn't find a spot for him. This is where I have Cameron Reed because, again, I feel like Carolina is very analytical. They're going to look at his skating. They're going to look at his shooting. They're going to say, wow, he does a lot of things. He's just not the biggest guy. And when I saw him in cap sleeves, I was like, he needs some filling out. I'm sure he will. And so we'll see. But I feel like he feels like a Carolina defenseman to me.
Yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it. Now, here's where I have San Jose snaking somebody that I would like for the Flyers. And I think I'm partially doing this just so that I can get this disappointment feeling out early.
Oh my God.
When it happens. But I put Henry Bushevitz in this slot for San Jose. I think he adds like an extra dynamic kind of player to the mix for San Jose that they're just like racking them up. And I feel like this is just adding another guy to the pile that's going to complement what they have already.
Well, what's interesting is Bailey from the WWE, a champion in her own right, is going to be making all the picks, announcing all the picks for the San Jose Sharks because she's a Sharks fan. And so that'll be fun. And what's interesting is I had gotten word, and I had said it yesterday on Sirius, that they're going to use celebrities for a lot of these picks because it's Los Angeles, right? So we'll see. We'll see who else will be there in person, who else will be there maybe on Zoom. We'll see how they do it. I think they're going to have everybody in person, though, to be honest. So she seemed really excited to do it. And so this is where I have Sasha Boumedian. I think I did this because I heard he didn't interview well, and I think he had trouble with my interview as well. I don't have any problem with the way he plays. But I think because of that, he might drop a little. And so if he does, I think San Jose would take advantage.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm just trying to, again, this is a mock draft. I think it's a good pick for San Jose. Like I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think it was a good pick. But I also think that like teams snaking somebody away from the Flyers right before them seems like the right way for me mentally to approach this as well. And that's why I have the Flyers taking Will Horkoff at 31. I think that is where they're going to net out. And I think it'll balance out the other picks that I had for them in terms of getting that center, getting that defenseman. And this is like a secondary center here to add to the mix.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, great athlete. Dad played in hockey, so good player. In hockey too, as an executive. So he's got the bloodline. This is where I think the Flyers are going to go with Shane Vinsagi. They interviewed him. He spoke really glowingly about the Flyers. He is one of these guys, if you look at him, you could see that he is rock solid, tough. And I feel like he could provide that on the wing. And this is going to be a while, guys. So don't say you have enough wingers because he's in college right now and he transferred mid-year. So he may go another 2 years in college. He may be in the AHL for a year and then they'll be thinking about him. But I think he's that kind of guy that I think fits the mold of hard to play against, tough, and can score a bit. I think we have to see more scoring this year, but when you transfer mid-season, it's hard, especially when you transfer up.
Yeah, I could see that. And I have him as one of the guys I would potentially take at 36 or 40 if he's available for the Flyers. He's one of the people we talked about on the show that I really like a lot. So I think it's a really good pick. For the 32nd pick, I have Calgary taking Cole McKinney. I think it's a good complement to the earlier pick of Braden Coots that I selected for them. I think that they need somebody that's more of a two-way player than Coots would be. And so I think this is just a good combo for them.
Yeah, we matched there. I have Cole McKinney. I feel like with McKinney, he's the best penalty killer in the draft. You saw the picture that we put up. He put on a good amount of muscle already. He's smart. He plays center. He scores. He scores more than you think. He's just a really good player. And so, yeah, I think he'd be terrific for them.
As far as just overall, now that we've kind of finished out the first round, assuming the Flyers use the 3 remaining second round picks, I would like Vansagi, I would like Jacob East-Wozniak with one of them, and then I would like a goaltender. And this is in no particular order in terms of who gets picked when, but I think I would like Frolov, but I will take Andreanov or Medvedev, to be honest. And that's where I think they'll pick the goaltender.
Yeah, I think if you're picking of those goalies, and again, I am not a goalie expert, folks, but I like Medvedev. I would say he would be a very solid guy who may not take as long because he's already transitioned here. And so I get that. I like Wozniak a lot. Like, that would never be upset about that. And, honestly, if Will Moore doesn't get picked in the first round, I would take him because he's a big center who I think will really develop and could actually be a second liner, may still be a third, but he has a lot of potential. And so, yeah, we'll see.
All right, that will do it for today's show and our 2025 NHL mock draft.
We'll rip it up the minute like the third or fourth pick is like something off the board like last year.
I fully expect that. We'll put a link to our picks in the show notes as well, along with our spreadsheet linking to all the prospect profiles. If there's somebody you want to catch up on, you can do so there. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got mailbag questions or any Flyers thoughts, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off season. It brings you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. I'm on the Friday show. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.